Overcooked 2 has shallow gameplay. Many games on the market today pride themselves on the depth of their systems. It's all about adding level systems and progressions and stats to everything. Look at the recent reimagining of the Assassin's Creed franchise, Assassin's Creed Origins. The game now has player levels and level-based zones. Gear has levels, causes status effects, and has rarity, and so on. And this naturally will be expanded further in the soon-to-be-released sequel, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Even games that are designed to be played casually have immense depth in many cases, which is evident by just scrolling through charts on the App Store, or looking at the success of Supercell and other large mobile developers. And so, when I say Overcooked 2 is shallow, you may assume that I mean that in a bad way. But I don't. If you haven't played Overcooked, it is a multiplayer cooking game, where different dishes need to be prepared from different ingredients and served within the time limit. You get bigger tips if you serve them faster, which means more points, and the game takes place in an assortment of weird and wonderful kitchens that are all laid out to promote teamwork. Early on, kitchens are simple and players may only be obstructed by a bench. Later in the game, players might be completely separated and need to pass things back and forth, or even interact with obstacles that throw a spanner in the works of their fine culinary teamwork, including this level, which for me and a friend was the Gordon Ramsay of Overcooked levels, demanding, and when something catches fire you end up crying in the pantry. And so gameplay is built out of these really shallow interactions. Get food out of a box, take the food to a cutting board, chop it, take it to a pan, wait for it to cook, and so on. And each of these activities is separate. Anyone can do any of them, so one player could make an entire dish by themselves, or each player could do one step, and the dish would still come together in the end. And this is where having shallow gameplay works really well. Each action in the game is tied to a station in the kitchen. Getting a tomato is tied to the corresponding crate. Chopping is tied to a chopping board. But how would having everything being simple be better than a more complex game? By having these very simple actions be tied to a station, and that station being responsible for one thing in most cases, it binds a gameplay action to a tile in the level. This lets the developers effectively moderate the gameplay difficulty by the way that the levels are constructed. All sorts of weird and wacky gameplay scenarios can be achieved just by rearranging the location of key elements of the level. This idea is even used in some levels that change their structure throughout, such as this level where you need to make pizzas. These sections in the middle move around to reformat the level every so often, even allowing the players to switch out positions before sealing them into their new area. Or this balloon stage, where the stage starts in the basket of this balloon. Players need to make one series of dishes in this fairly simple kitchen, but after a period of time, the balloon crashes through the roof of this sushi shop, and the players are then required to make different dishes while finishing their old ones. Not to mention they have to learn the new layout on the fly. This immense versatility leads to levels that feel very different, and levels that may have different interesting features, all while keeping the core tenets of the gameplay. The versatility also means that as a group of players, you can approach each kitchen in a range of ways, coming up with a strategy, testing out that strategy, adjusting it, getting angry at that one person who keeps stepping outside of their role, tolerating it, and holding your tongue, failing several times, switching out the strategy for a new one, not telling that one person that you switched out the strategy because they couldn't just stay in their lane. Brooding. Having all of these actions means that you can delegate several small tasks to a player, and it means that you can tweak your strategy easily too. Maybe someone gets a new job you didn't foresee, like washing plates, or maybe you switch people out if one person is having trouble keeping up with the requirements of what they have been delegated by the group. This allows the developers to come up with interesting levels and allows difficulty to be somewhat handled by the players deciding on their strategy. The biggest benefit is that the kitchens don't need to be adjusted for varying amounts of players. A team with 3 players will just further delegate the tasks of the 4th player, or they will adjust to a 3-player strategy, and the only difference is the amount of dishes required changes slightly. Let's take a look at some levels. There are 2 types of levels I want to talk about. The first type of level is going to be what I call a system level. These levels are designed around the players forming a well-oiled machine, and are often laid out where each player will have a job. The idea of these levels is to come up with a plan that works, and then tweak it over time to get the most efficiency you can squeeze out of your formation. An example of this kind of level might be this stage where you need to make burgers. Ingredients are here, chopping boards are here, frying pans are here, and the dishes get served here. So you might start off with one person throwing ingredients over, one person could chop the raw ingredients, one person cooks and arranges dishes on the plate, and one person takes the finished dishes up and serves them. And then you will probably need to tweak the strategy to be more efficient after trying it. such as deciding who takes the dirty dishes from here back down to the sink. These levels rely on everyone doing their job as fast and effectively as possible, while avoiding minor obstacles such as flames. Having shallow gameplay benefits these levels because roles can be adjusted easily, and it is easy to segment out work to different players and adjust to players who are more or less proficient. The other type of level is what I'm going to call a novelty level. These levels don't draw their difficulty from the arrangement of the kitchen, and so having an efficient system is less important, opting instead for having some form of novelty that the players need to work around. As an example, this level has a series of different shaped land bridges that rise and fall out of the water, and this level has a moving platform controlled by a joystick, where the only space that the player can stand on is the platform itself. In these levels, it is generally more about working efficiently to the timings of the level, and as such, the required scores in these levels are much lower. You can only cross the bridges so many times, and you can only navigate this platform to each station a certain amount of times in a level, so scores have to match a suitable amount of dishes being served. Just being able to work around or adjust to the gimmick is the hard part. These levels benefit from the shallow gameplay because the developers can create interesting obstacles, such as these dimensional levels, or progressive set pieces like this canyon that fills up with water, and then the kitchen becomes 2 rafts. And they can do this without needing to change the core gameplay, which leads to a lot of fun variety for the players. Having this extremely shallow amount of interaction with the gameplay allows for a really good casual game that is accessible by many players because the gameplay is decided in portion by the players. New players can even be brought in on later levels easily by just giving them a couple of things to do. And finally, it provides a puzzle of efficiency for the players to work out, as roles can be tweaked and adjusted to get the most efficiency out of your team. So to end on, having shallow gameplay isn't always a bad thing, and Overcooked is a perfect example of this done well. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.